Sasquatch, Yahoo, Phantom of the Forest, you Spear, Finger, Fire Dragon, Ohio Grassman, Silver Giant, Bloodless Howler, West Virginia Vampire, Coyote King, Hogzilla, Devil, Dark Coyote Killer.
Welcome to BIGFEETS, the Mountain Monsters watch-along podcast for the makers of 1-900-HOT-DOG, the last comedy website. Go there for daily articles about unthinkable things, written by talented comedians for the smartest and best readers. Patreon.com/1-900-HOT-DOG. I am that site's co-founder, Seanbaby. And in 1975, I received the first perfect 10 karate score.
That's it? That's the end of the...
That's the whole Frank Dukes fact. I got it from his world records page.
I am award-winning author Jason Pargin, and the book that I am on here promoting is called I'm Starting to Worry About This Black Box of Doom. It made the USA Today bestseller list, but did not make the New York Times bestseller list because they were too scared. It's available in every format. Apparently, the audiobook is fantastic. It has like 200 reviews on Audible, and the average score is 4.8. But it's also available in ebook and hardcover. So if you have a book reading person in your life you need to get a Christmas gift for, please ask them what type of books they like. Don't just buy them a random book, but maybe if you know they're a fan of mine, yeah, get it for a gift.
It is a great book, a smart book. I've been reading reviews for it. People love it. One of my favorite podcasts is Knowledge Fight, and they stopped the show a couple episodes ago to just talk about how great the book was. And that was,
oh, I didn't even realize that. That's wonderful. Robert Brockway is not here today. So already some of you from the description of the episode are already in a fit of rage and saying, are you not going to discuss the next episode of Mountain Monsters? That episode probably left off on a cliffhanger that you've been unable to get out of your mind ever since you saw it. I frankly do not remember what the last episode was. But what if I told you that in the last 2 years that Mountain Monsters producer Colt Straub tried to reboot that show with a cast made up entirely of sexy hunks in cowboy hats? So with Brockway not here, he's gone for a little bit for good reasons. We decided to scout one of the spin-off shows, part of the Mountain Monsters cinematic universe. I think these all take place in the same, well, our universe. It's obviously occurring in reality.
They're all real. These really happened.
To see if these other shows are as good, because someday if we run out of Mountain Monsters episodes, where we would think, well, we'll just do one of these other ones. And so we tried a show that the fans, I think in the Discord, alerted us to called UFO Cowboys.
They were right. It's good. It is, you're right. It's a lot like Mountain Monsters. Only all the creatures come from space and everyone's a hunk. But other than that, they kind of are the same format and competence level, I guess. I only watched the first episode and a bit of the fourth after you suggested I tune in for the new. I don't want to get ahead of us, but the nude wrestling match. That's a spoiler.
We are going to discover many things about Mountain Monsters by watching this other show. So it does make for essential listening, even though I know for a fact when a lot of you do your re-listen of all the Mountain Monsters podcast, you're going to skip this episode and the next one. In fairness, I get it. Brockway's not here. It makes the vibes weird. You do not need to comment on the YouTube video that the vibes are weird. Brockway's not here. That's just, the show was his idea. This is his show. Yeah. He's the Mountain Monsters
Jason fan. And I, we famously hated each other for years. But
well, and we're going to get into it because in this show I have, let's just get this out at the top.
Okay.
There's a TikTok video where somebody complains that the most recent Alien film, what's it called? Alien Romulus? Is that what it was called?
I think it was Alien Strikes. No, Electric Boogaloo. Of course it was Electric Boogaloo, the classic sequel name we all love, even after the Nazis tried to take it.
The video was complaining that in the most recent Alien film, the entire cast is made up of models. They're all just gorgeous Hollywood hunks. Whereas, and they compared this to the original Alien, where the cast looked like truckers. They looked like normal people. They had interesting faces. They were not a bunch of interchangeable hunks, but the way Hollywood works now, everybody has to be a hunk. You can't cast people. True. They're doing this Penguin show, this Batman Penguin show, and they had to have, because the Penguin's supposed to be kind of a rotund guy, they had to have sexy hunk Colin Farrell slather like latex on himself to turn him into like a chubby bald dude. When there's a billion chubby bald dudes who are excellent actors, you could just cast. It's like, well, no, the audience has to be reassured that there's a sexy hunk under there somewhere.
Now that you mention it, it does feel good. I like the Penguin. I think it's a good show, but I think part of that is that it feels good knowing there's a hunk under that.
This is the thing. I am against the hunkification of Hollywood.
Okay. I know that's our main conflict. This is not something
I'm a fan of. So immediately people in the comments are going to start speculating because people like to stir up drama. They're like, Jason, Sean has lived his whole life as a sexy dude, as like a tall, sexy, muscular dude. You're going to sit here and you're going to talk smack about hunks with like Sean's right there on the other side of the microphone, actually hundreds and hundreds of miles away. I have nothing against the hunks themselves. This is not their fault. If I was a hunk, I would be in Hollywood out there trying to make it as an actor. It's the game that I hate, not the players.
Right. Thank you for saying all those things about me being a hunk. Brockway is kind of our website hunk. He's going to actually be a little upset that he missed the hunk day. He's on Sasquatch sabbatical.
Have we explained why Brockway is gone? I know it came up in previous episodes. He probably explained it on the Dog Zone. He's not sick. He's not hurt.
Yeah.
He's not in the hospital this time. As of recording, he's not in the hospital for anything. He's not been canceled. Right. He's not been fired from the show. None of us, all of our old tweets have been deleted. We're all invincible. None of us are going to get canceled. Everything is fine. He got paying work, so he cannot do BIGFEETS for free because, to be clear, not only are we not being paid to do this, this is costing us significant money out of pocket to make. There are no sponsors on this show other than, of course, our friends at Squarespace. Make a beautiful website and pretend that it's 1998 and that websites are how people find you.
Footbox. All the latest Sasquatch foods for your dog.
Are those things still happening where you get like a subscription? Remember that period of like 5 years where the whole deal was you pay a monthly fee and they mail you a bunch of crap you didn't ask for? Is that business model still going on?
At our house, we get a Japan crate, which is like Japanese candy snacks. It's a crowd pleaser. You pop that open. The wife loves it. The kids love it. I guess we are doing an ad. But yeah, it's fun. I mean, if you're going to just throw money away for snacks, like why the fuck not make a little fun out of it? I don't know.
Anyway, the show we're going to be talking about today is episode 1 of UFO Cowboys. We found it on the Roku channel. It does not cost anything to watch. I think to watch it online, if you go to Roku channel, I just have to give them an email address and they'll probably put you on a spam list. I didn't have to pay anything to watch it. Don't pay anything to watch UFO Cowboys. If you hit a paywall, it's fine. Just
something went terrible. I'm not sure it's anywhere else. It says it's a Roku original, so that's something. My notes say "Time to cowboy up" is the tagline. I think right off the bat, it cracked me up because it says they claim the American West is home to more supernatural and extraterrestrial activity than anywhere else in the United States, which is. To me, like aggressively nothing. That's like saying that direction, home to more gremlin rumors than the other one. It's the American West is by definition half the country. And it's like, dude, it's got more than the American East.
It literally does show like a graphic and they highlight the entire western half of the United States. It's literally over 1 million square miles is what they've declared to be the hotbed of UFO activity. And in that span of land, it also is probably a hotbed of serial killers. And pick something, anything. That's a lot of land. Most of it's desert. Not many people live there.
I'd say more than half of the things happen more in that half than the other. Just sort of statistically, I would say pick something and half of it happens more often in this half. I don't know. I was an art major, not a statistics major, but I do think that probability works out.
So right away in the opening sizzle reel, you realize this show has more of a budget. You're going to see stuff that does come up, not necessarily in this episode, but later in the season. They have helicopter stuff. They have an ambulance and actors in EMT gear, like hauling away somebody. They've got, they do horse stunts. At one point they wrestle a man nude. That's, you briefly see that, you know.
That's really expensive.
And then the cast, as we've teased multiple times, is basically one grizzled dude in a prospector beard and 5 hunks, right?
Right. Well, I think one of the hunks has a beard, but he looks like Alexander Skarsgård, like playing a caveman role. Like he is probably the hunkiest of all of them.
Now, almost all of these guys are performers that you can find. So like the main guy, oddly enough, is named Jeff, which is going to really screw me up because you have Jeff playing the trapper role, which I don't know why that makes me so angry, but it makes me physically angry, the fact that their trapper is named Jeff. And that's his real name. His name is Jeff Sailors. He's a YouTuber. It does cowboy stuff. All the rest of these guys, I've looked them up. They are all, they're rodeo performers, or they are Aura has been on like that Kevin Costner cowboy movie. I think it's called Horizon, whatever the hell it's called. He did horse stunts for that. Like he works in Hollywood.
It's so clear that they're very competent horsemen. Like as soon as they get on the horse, I was like, whoa, these guys know what they're doing.
And in fact, later in the season, they're going to do the kind of horse stunts where like the horse falls over, like the dangerous horse stunts that can get you killed. I looked in the credits. They've got a horse stunt coordinator. Like they've got a guy who knows what he's doing. So automatically, even before we started any watching of the show, where we are just in the opening credits here, it's clear how badly they've gone wrong. Because it's like Mountain Monsters, the budget's a little higher, little slicker production, and these are trained performers, and they're hot. And it's like, no.
Recipe for disaster.
We didn't want any of that. It's like saying, well, we're going to make a John Waters movie, but tasteful. It's like, oh, so you never understood what we liked about any of this, did you? And the answer we're going to find out is no, until 100%. We get to episode 4 when they're going to start to remember what the audience, what puts butts in the seats. But we will get to that. So anyway, the opening credits. Do you want to do a roll call of our hunks?
Yeah, let's do it. They open, they got the chrome UFO font. Picture like a 90s VHS box called CyberCop 2000. It's that font. Jeff is, like we say, is the team leader. Colt Straub always casts a Jeff. And I agree with Jason. It's very frustrating. The next up is Parker, and he's an expert tracker. I don't know how that's going to work with spaceships. So I'm interested how you track a spaceship. Aura, which Jason mentioned, he's former military, but probably not in a cool way if they're not saying which branch or what he did in it. In fact, it's kind of a running gag of the show is that Aura is like a military expert or a former military, not a veteran, which is a strange choice of words that I'm very suspicious of. Next up is Hadley, who is a greenhorn, which is country for rookie. Josh is a survivalist and obviously very useful skill when you're 100 yards from a rural McMansion. Caleb is Josh is the Alexander Skarsgård guy that I mentioned. He is very hunky, but like Encino Man, who I guess was a hunk, so never mind. Unqualified hunk. Caleb is a livestock expert, which is handy because then he can tell you what an animal was before space monsters turned it inside out. So that's the team. That's the full squad, and we're introduced to him overlooking the beautiful southwest Colorado landscape, just admiring the beauty of the land.
And I'm going to spoil right now, I struggle to remember the names of the hunks or to keep the hunks separate. Other than Aura, who was black, which is great. They immediately made the cast more diverse than Mountain Monsters, but that is the end of the diversity there. With just they did add the one guy.
One of them is Cherokee.
Okay, we need to head this off right now.
We're getting way ahead.
Because Parker is going to make, and it is Parker, correct?
I think so, yeah.
Is going to make a big deal out of his Cherokee blood gave him powers to track things. And we are going to immediately want to make a bunch of jokes about that because of Mountain Monsters and our experiences there. Here's the thing. Parker is actually Cherokee and actually does live in a town that is used to be a reservation and is actually and apparently active in that community and in the Oklahoma Native American acting community. So we are not going to be mocking this man for claiming that his Cherokee blood helps him track things.
He does have 5 o'clock shadow at noon, which I'm suspicious of, but if you got the paperwork on it.
Yeah, I feel like he probably has more grounds to say this than Buck had, but
well, good for him.
We can discuss that some other time. For now, yeah.
So he has the rhetorical authority to say, I have the racial character trait of tracking handed down to me by, because I wouldn't say that. Like I'm speaking to you and you're part Cherokee. I would find it offensive if I said, Jason, please use your Cherokee tracking skills to find us lunch or something. And if you said I'm highly offended by that, I would not be surprised. Right.
But we are not going to criticize him for that. It does seem weird that he would say that. But again, if that helped him get this role, then great. We are in Colorado. And was it your understanding they have been called to this ranch to help with the setup is they're here to do 2 jobs, to help the guy who owns the ranch move his cows to a different pasture in their role as cowboys and to fight the aliens that have arrived there. They're going to do the cattle thing first.
I feel like the aliens were kind of a lucky coincidence, according to the setup. Because when Jeff introduces everyone, he's like, boy, this is my idea of heaven. How about you? And I was a little disappointed because, like, if he would have said that to me, my response would have been like, heaven is wherever your lips are, Jeff. But they don't. They just like agree. And I feel like it's a mistake. You can't hand over the reins of a conversation to someone this melodramatic. You'll be marveling at sunsets all week. But instead, these guys are, yep, you sure is most beautiful thing ever, Jeff. Totally agree. So he's got like an iron grip on the tone of the show, which is a terrible, terrible move. Jeff brings up, we haven't even talked about like the moving the cattle yet, but Jeff is bringing up the strange things that happen in this land, and not necessarily this ranch, but like just the western part of the country. For example, he lists strange markings on animals and mutilations. And I think that's a weird way to prioritize that list. Also, I don't trust lists that stop at 2. I think I would have believed him more if he was like, if he just told every single mutilation story that's happened. If he was just like, my buffaloes had scoops of flesh missing in 1978 and 58 times last year. I don't know.
This is an important point because he is going to say that all the way back in 2014, and this show, the first season, 2023, so saying 9 years ago, me and this group of hunks formed a team and we called ourselves the Cowboy Skywatchers. Now, I think in reality, if you went into a country bar in Oklahoma with you and 5 hunks and you said, yeah, we call ourselves the Cowboy Skywatchers, I think you just started yourself a bar fight. I could be wrong. I've not been there. Maybe they're more open-minded than that.
I feel like I would have just said, there's no bachelorette parties here. You have the wrong bar. Like, because that's a stripper squad. Or a 6-year-old who just started a club. And you might say, Cowboy Skywatchers, oh, grandchild, you might be a little old for that. But no, this is an elderly man.
And then as with Mountain Monsters, where they did the same thing for some strange reason, claimed they've been doing this for like 7 years, as if that built up their credibility rather than being the saddest thing you can imagine. Immediately they're going to forget this. There will be zero evidence that they have ever done any of this before. Just as in Mountain Monsters, every time they encounter anything, even standard UFO stuff like lights, they're going to say, I ain't never seen anything like that. Which would be perfect if the setup was, hey, we're just a bunch of cowboy hunks who've been hired to move these cows. And then while we were here, holy crap, we saw some UFOs. And then we started filming. But that's not the setup.
Not at all.
This rancher picked up the phone and called the Cowboy Skywatchers after seeing their ad probably on, like, hey, have you seen UFOs? Got UFOs in your ranch? Or if you have a bachelor party, child's birthday party, we just need to know what costumes to arrive in. Call the Cowboy Skywatchers. And so now they're on the scene at this ranch, and immediately Jeff at the intro is going to start talking like he has been at this spot in the past, right? But I don't know that I ever fully understood that context.
Well, before we get there, I wanted to say that they did drop the number of how many times they've had a case. It says they've investigated 238 different cases of unexplained phenomenon, which means since they have not proven the existence of UFOs, they failed to solve 238 out of 238 cases, which I say ties them for the fucking worst anything anyone has ever been at any activity. But anyway, Jeff is now like kind of doing that whole like Obi-Wan Kenobi thing. Like, oh, I've got an old feeling here that I haven't felt in many years. Jeff said that strange things happen sometimes, I think is how he put it. And the rookie says, y'all are throwing me into the fire here on my first rodeo, which is, it's a pretty violent mix of country idioms, but also like, how could it be more gentle than someone saying, yeah, some weird stuff happens sometimes in this half of the country. He's like, oh shit, I ain't ready for all this.
Yeah, because they're not being attacked at that moment. They've just been called to move his cows and also to ask him about some of the stuff that's happened again over the last 100 years or 100+ years. Because they're going to talk to the first witness, Steve, who owns the land, right? He's the main guy. It's his ranch. And so he says that there's been sightings there since they stole this land from the engines back in the 1900s. All that since then it's been livestock disappearing, two-headed calves being born, a calf born with its guts on the outside, unexplained fires. Now, these are all things that do just happen on a ranch without the presence of aliens. There are birth defects and like, hay catches on fire spontaneously. That's just a thing that does happen. It does not require, a heat ray from a UFO. But these are examples of the things that have been happening and that they are there to investigate if they get time once they finish moving the cows.
Once they finish their day job. Yeah, so I'm already a little worried they're going to get outsmarted by the advanced civilizations because I think there's a lot of better reasons than aliens for some of these things. Also, I have a pretty good idea why cow mutilations and crop circles are happening near cattle ranches and not aquariums or the suburbs, I suppose. I don't like the joking, I guess. I had it in my notes that Jeff said, I feel it in my bones, something odd's happening around here. And Aura's like, I thought that was your arthritis. And they're all like, ha, 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 ha. I'm like, it's just not the same as like, because the mountain monster guys are like, they'll get real lewd with it. They're like, I saw your balls in the shower. And you're like, okay. They hang lower than a grandma's turkey neck. I didn't have a joke ready.
Here's where the first time we have to ask ourselves a question. Because when we do Mountain Monsters, every single thing that happens, we act like on Big Feets, this was improvised by the Ames team on the spot.
Right.
We never suggested that they had a producer giving them like, dialogue to do. That seems weird to suggest.
Yeah.
But here you have this little bit of banter like they do on Mountain Monsters. And somebody did Colt Straub say, hey, I want you to kind of bust each other's balls the way, you've seen Trapper and the gang do it. I want you to do it like that. Or does he write this? Did he write all of that stuff where he had them like spying on each other in the shower?
Yeah. I don't know about Mountain Monsters being pre-written. I think sometimes it is. But this exchange I just described was, I bet my life on it being pre-written.
But so you think that producer Colt Straub wrote that dialogue for them? Someone
wrote it. I don't know if he, had them.
They can't have a writer's room. No, there can't be a writer's room for this show. There can't be a writer's room. Oh, God. What if there's a writer's room for the show?
That would be very frustrating.
These guys work until like 2 a.m. trying to break this story for the two things that happen in each episode. It's like, okay, we've already had the one thing happen. What's the second thing that happens in this episode? All right, so here's where I guess I've got to explain. The format is totally different. This show, the way they do it, each episode is like half an hour long. The whole season revolves around one case. Like there are some crime shows like prestige dramas they won't have. It's not like Law and Order SVU where there's a different rapist every week. They will have one rapist across 6 episodes. You're going to say, holy crap, that sounds like a bad idea, because I've watched some of those shows, and even with award-winning writers and directors and producers, you can tell that they did not have 6 episodes worth of rape. They should have just done like 1 or 2. That the middle of those shows go on some tangents that are clearly there just so Netflix can have their 6 hours of watch time. So, gosh, did they honestly take a Mountain Monsters case and stretch it across an entire season? Yes.
They did. They did, and they
did.
Shouldn't have.
And it's even from the first episode, from the pacing, it is clear. Oh my God, they're going to stretch a single case across a whole season of TV.
Like Mountain Monsters is kind of known for them just leaving. They're like, okay, we heard a noise, let's get back in our truck and go home. This show is so much worse than that, where they'll like, okay, let's go investigate the barn. And they're just like, okay, that's enough. We looked at it. Time to go. I guess we're getting ahead of ourselves, but let's talk to Steve first, I guess. We do the witness headgear check.
We're like 3 minutes into the show, by the way. I'm so sorry, but
which is fine. I think we knew this was going to happen. Steve's got a Sam Elliott mustache and an Indiana Jones hat, so we can recognize him later. He says that since the 1900s, which makes one of the cowboys say, wow, strange things have been happening near this barn. And here's a thing that is very different from Mountain Monsters. As soon as he says that barn, the camera like picks up and shoots across the ground, like either on a drone or a crane. It's a very high production shot.
We're actually going to see the drone they use later. It's a drone. They take full advantage of the drone stuff in this show. They love the fact that they've got a drone to work with.
Right. And it does look pretty cool, but too cool for viewers should want or should expect from a show like this. Like it's not enough effort to be a good show and way too much effort to be like a Mountain Monsters. This guy's talking about like the barn stuff. And he's like, well, there's livestocks disappear, 2-headed cows. You mentioned some of these things. As far as space evidence goes, it's pretty thin. And then so Parker says, hey, you got anything maybe more recent? And this reminds Steve, oh, yeah. A couple weeks ago, I heard a rumbling, kind of like a train. You guys have heard of trains, right? Like, when you're in the city and you hear a train start up, you guys get the train. I'm making it sound faster than it was in the show. He really wants to make sure everyone's on the same page before he gets to his story. And then he tells a story of a fucking UFO. He's like, after like, you guys know what a train sounds like. I heard that. I go outside. I see something hovering 18 feet wide, a 7-sided object. I don't know. I feel like a fucking guy sees a flying saucer and doesn't bring it up till 90 minutes into a discussion of weird things happening in a barn. Suspicious.
Yes. After all of that, all of the stuff about, sometimes there were fires we couldn't figure out the origin of. Sometimes there were birth defects in the cows. Anything else? Well, I saw a giant spaceship and a jet of blue energy shot out from underneath it and left a massive crater behind. Do you want to see the crater? It's like, okay, you had us spend all day moving your cows. We asked you about the history of your barn. And he said, oh, yeah, that barn's been haunted for 120 years. Cows, birth defects, cows born with their guts weird. Sometimes cows go missing. even though the fence ain't broke. And there's a giant spaceship the other day that I saw right in front of me. Literally evidence of extraterrestrial life. We're not alone in the universe. Everything we thought we understood about the world, like your religion is wrong because God doesn't mention there being life on other planets. So that means there's probably no afterlife. I may have accidentally started an interplanetary war due to my actions. All of these implications. I forgot about it till just now, till you brought it up.
Thank you for reminding me. I actually really liked when he said to look at the crater because Caleb comes on. He says, no. What the team needs to do now is get over there and lay his ass on the ground to see what happened. And I really like how they're going to go look at the spaceship crater, and he's trying to put it in some kind of like military terms, like in a situation like this, the protocol calls for us to administer eyeball treatments to the suspected spaceship debris field. Then we assess our nutrition needs for snacks in a maneuver we call Lunch Squadron Delta. Fucking stupid.
This crater, did they make this? Or was this some sort of naturally?
Oh, no. Maybe the producers of UFO Cowboys didn't know that my TV was 4K, but bitch, I can see the backhoe tracks left by the space aliens by your little hole.
Okay.
So Caleb's like, what the hell's capable of doing that? And I'm like, a backhoe, dumbass, an excavator, 5 dudes with shovels. I can see the tracks.
Yeah, because they really did try to dress it up. They made like little striations, whatever, so it would kind of look like a crater.
Pretty good.
And then once they get out there, Jeff or one of the hunks, and again I can't remember, Dirk or whatever the Stud. I don't remember the hunks' names. I apologize. But one of them's like, well, this is not an impact crater. Something came up from below and made this, okay. Which I think they immediately are going to forget.
Yeah, they totally bailed on that.
I think that was on the spot that somebody was criticizing how they had dug it out. That it's like, well, this don't look like an impact crater because there's not like a bowl at the bottom of it. It looks like something came up from underneath, like a geyser or something. And he said it, but they're not going to this is not going to turn into Tremors, which would have been awesome.
Oh, now I would have liked that. Throw Tremors in. I don't care. You got to fill the entire season. Steve then also adds, oh yeah. A couple days ago, 5 cows went missing. So anyway, listeners, I cracked this case. There's Earth excavator tracks leading away from a big crater and 5 missing cows. Steve is committing livestock insurance fraud. Ta-da!
But this is going to trigger a plot line because Jeff is going to say, well, maybe we can find them for you. It's like, aren't they in space?
Yes. What? And what incredibly low stakes. Well, we'll get them 4 cows back.
So you don't have to turn this into your
interplanetary
insurance.
Cow rescue.
But that's going to become half of when they set out to solve this thing. The first thing they're going to do is try to get those cows. But because again, they keep trying to emphasize this is not UFO investigators. This is UFO cowboys. They are working cowboys. It's actually cowboy UFOers because they are cowboys first and the UFO stuff is on the side. Like, please, they would not have cred out here in this land if they were UFO investigators who did cowboy stuff in their spare time. They are purebred cowboys. They are cowfolk. Don't get it wrong. Well, they wait until nighttime, the worst time to do any of this. They have to split up. And so at night, when it's impossible to find the cows, one team is going to go off to try to find the cows. And meanwhile, Aura and one of the hunks, Hoss,
I can't remember either.
I don't know. They're going to go to the crater to try to take science samples of the crater.
Yes. The voiceover here calls Aura a military expert, which again, not a veteran or former military at this point. Really dancing around something. I don't know what he did. Maybe his wife was in the National Guard or something. I don't know. Point is, he has a Geiger counter. So he's like the Jeff of the team. He's got the gadgets. And immediately when he pulls out the Geiger counter, they're like, what was that sound? So they're immediately in the shit. They hear a sound behind them. They're yelling,
sorry,
hey.
I apologize. I don't want to stop you, but you skipped something because he pulled out the Geiger counter and the hunk with him says, what's that?
Oh, that's right.
He's like, it's a Geiger counter. Another guy's like, a Geiger what?
Speak English, Doc.
It measures radiation levels, and I was just hoping it would just keep going like, radio what?
FM or AM? Slow down.
But yeah, they instantly they hear a noise, and then Orr pulls out his thermal camera, which is much better than the one. Yeah. Again, you see the budget here. He has a much fancier thermal camera, and then immediately he's like, "Well, what do you see? Nothing."
Nothing.
It's like, all right, it still does not work any better, but
it's fine. That's fine. You need to have it around. So they go to the barn. Something in the barn is making noises. It was running around outside, and then it ran in the barn. And they get their gun out. They cock the hammer back. Whatever's in there, they're going to kill. There's a light in the barn. It's a sort of a flickering orange glow. And it's kind of interesting, but they cut away. That's another thing this show does. It's like, ooh, what's happening over here? You know what? Never mind. Let's go check out with the other fellas. And so they're on the horses, and they're looking for the cow tracks. I wrote this quote down. It says, look, their tracks go into this field. What is this field? like just the idea of grass is somehow sinister. Like if he says it's scary, somehow the ground becomes a true cow mystery or something. I don't know. It cracked me up because I get that storytelling device that like, I've never seen anything like this, but it was just a field. And
yeah. And as they approach, they make their horses panic.
Yes.
Using their rodeo skills. Like they do this thing. It's like, oh my gosh, the horses, they don't want to go out in that field. The horse can sense that.
You caught that too.
There's something out there.
I did write down that instead of looking bothered, the horses looked like they were being expertly spun around by experienced horsemen. Suspicious. Again, very suspicious.
But in that barn, they're going to do something that they do a lot in the show, because they did think through some of like what are our visuals going to be. So they've got like a very powerful spotlight they use. They're going to use it over and over again. You see it in the sizzle reel for the rest of the season, and they've just got like some orange gels on it or whatever in this case. Right. But they've got the big bright lights, which is fine. That's a UFO thing. They're big bright lights. So they've got something that actually looks like something, but it is still clearly just a big light. But still, it's something. They don't have to like look at nothing and pretend like they don't have to have the camera like suspiciously not show the barn.
Jeff says that Steve said at night the demons really come alive at this place, and you can feel it, because a lot of this is not science. It's more vibey. It's like they sense demons and ghosts. It's really shot and told like a ghost hunting show. They're not dealing with, physical creatures from the stars, but more of like maybe Satan, maybe a ghost. I don't know. Did you get that sense?
We're going to get into that because they have put a little bit more thought into. We're going to get into that. So because Jeff's conclusion is immediately, oh, we shouldn't be out here at night.
Right.
So we actually should have done this earlier because we were here.
Yeah. We were here.
We were exactly right here earlier in the day talking to Steve. We should have just rode out and did it then. Why did we wait till midnight to do this?
It's a good point. It's a little spooky. The rookie's like, this is too spooky. I want to go home. Jeff's like, hell yeah, that's a great idea. I'm also very scared of the evil barn. Fine. Okay. That's it for them.
Yeah. But both teams decide, the team investigating the strange lights in the barn, they also decide, this is too scary. We're leaving.
Yeah.
And also, or it turns to the cameraman. It's as you two, come on, get out of here. It's too scary in there. So right away, they acknowledge the camera person, something that took Mountain Monsters like 30 episodes to do. So
yeah, that's true. I was going back and watching some older Mountain Monsters, and it was really funny how they would address the cameraman while talking about being alone. Like Buck would say, like, I hate it out here. Like he's doing a Blair Witch bit. Like, I'm so scared out here alone. There's nothing like it. Like you're talking to a guy. So now I guess it's the next day. They're looking around for cow prints in the field, which is smarter than looking for cow prints at night. And the survivalist hunk is with them now. And Parker, he's the tracker. He looks down. He's like, what kind of track is that? Bends down and there's some weird drawings in the mud. Again, maybe they didn't know how good my TV was, but you can see like the layers of smudge where someone clearly sketched these into the mud with a human finger. Like layers of it. Like it looks like a bad rough sculpture that you'd make in a nude figure drawing class. It's a big frog footprint. Parker suggests, what does he say? Maybe a turkey track. It kind of looks like a turkey track, but like 10 times too big.
Yeah, because they've tried to. It seems to me like they tried to draw like a velociraptor track, like a three-toed. Like you're trying to bring to mind sort of a three-toed monster, a reptilian creature of some kind. And because it's to explain how he can track things. Yeah, like you said, Parker says it's my Cherokee heritage that lets me track things, and says when he grew up, they didn't hunt for fun. That if they didn't, if they didn't catch anything, they didn't eat. That was their only food. Now, his age, like he's late 30s, so he grew up in the 90s in a small town in Oklahoma. I'm not saying that nobody lived like that. It's just that he phrases it like he grew up in 1894, not 1994.
He might have been the one who said, wow, when the other guy said, my family's been here since the 1900s. He might have been the one that went, wow. Maybe he's a time traveler.
One of the other hunks says, that's a 2-footed critter.
Maybe.
So now they've got an alien footprint, the most important scientific find in history, period. It's like this means more than splitting the atom in terms of the implications. Cut away to Jeff is heading back to the old barn for what feels like the 4th time in the episode. They don't have a lot of different locations to work with here.
I think what was frustrating to me, I don't want to get too far ahead. They played with that footprint for a while, and no one suggested it was a fucking alien. These guys have investigated 238 alien cases. They found a 2-footed, like, giant lizard chicken, and no one is saying out loud, "Oh, cool, it's an alien footprint." They're just like, "Well, what kind of chicken they got around here? Gobble gobble."
Is this what made off with the cattle? And like, well, that kind of doesn't follow either. Like that doesn't, what you're looking at isn't big enough because it's not like a 14-inch long footprint. It doesn't suggest a Tyrannosaurus. It looks like
not Shaq in a turkey costume
than a man.
Which was my first guess. I was like, "This is Shaq in a turkey costume." We're like, no, it's too small.
But back to the barn where it's Jeff and Aura. I can remember Aura. And then another of the hunks, let's say Flint. And Jeff says he gets a feeling in the pit of his belly like he hasn't had in 30 years. And this is what mountain monsters never had.
Yep.
Jeff has an invisible talent for detecting. That's why he formed the Cowboy Sky Captains, because he has some intuition that he can sense alien activity. That's all you need. He's got
That's all you need. I bought it.
Skill that
I liked it.
You cannot see it. You have to take his word for it. There's no special effect or anything. His skill is not parkour where they'd have to have a stuntman come in. It's a feeling in the pit of his stomach. That's all you need. Because now, that moves the plot along. He hasn't had this feeling in his belly in 30 years. Now, why did he not get this feeling in his belly for any of the other previous 250 cases they've investigated?
This time it's personal. This lizard turkey, it's personal. Speaking of moving the plot along, he walks into the barn and says, "It's cooler in here than it is outside." Great observation. Very unusual for a barn. And then he immediately retreats again. He's like, "This barn is too spooky, even in the daytime." And they all agree. They're just barn cowards. The empty barn is defeated. 3 of them now. Jeff is very rattled.
So meanwhile, cut back to the other team of hunks. They're still staring at that footprint, at the giant turkey footprint. And they hear a weird noise that's coming from that mysterious field. So now we're back to the same location they were in last night. Barn and field. We just left. We went there at nighttime, went back to the hotel, came back during the day and did the exact same thing. It is perfect plotting.
The livestock expert says, we ain't never seen tracks like that or heard noises like that. And so they leave because, again, it's very scary. But former military and researcher Aura, not sure what that means. He's found something out about that field. So he has his laptop out and they all crowd around his computer. And it's a video of just a fucked up deer. It's just got a hole in it. It's a deer snuff film. It's really gross. But they're all like, "Wow, there's no blood. No human would do that. No bear, coyote would do that." Here's where I think they went maybe too far, but definitely not far enough, where they ask Jeff if he's ever seen anything like that. And he's like, "Oh," and he stands up straight from the computer and the music builds fields. And he goes, almost. And it's just like, dude, like, he didn't be like, take a drag on a cigarette. Not for 30 years. Not since my second wife was torn inside out by a fucking space beam. No, he's just almost. And they're like, what the fuck does that mean?
So they mention that cattle mutilations are common, and they are. This is, if people are curious, this is a thing that has been around forever. Part of it is, if you're wondering, it's simply decomposition will split the skin, and that creates, like, it looks like a straight incision, but it's really just like it's just been pulled apart by decomposition, causes it to swell, the skin splits. Looks horrible if you've never seen it before, but that's what animals in the wild sometimes look like. And then you've had some weird ones where there's like shapes and stuff cut out of them. Those were done by pranksters or perverts. There are people who get off on doing this, so they were carving up a dead animal while cranking their hog. So, but they all look at this photo and they're like, what? There's no way animal does that. It's like, no, guys, remember, the lore is that you've been doing this for a decade. You have been to a new UFO thing these people, for example, they're going to see later in the season, they're going to see a crop circle and are going to crap their pants because they've never seen that before. Right. They have no idea what the hell. It's like, why is the wheat's all flattened in a circle? It's like a strange symbol. It's like, okay, no. You are playing the role of expert UFO investigators who do this for a living when you're not moving cows from pasture to pasture. You've done this hundreds of times. The dialogue should be, what I'm seeing here is a class 4 mutilation. Yeah, it's a class Genitals 4 mutilation. Intact, split abdomen, the ears have been cut off. We saw that in that stuff we saw in Texas. Yeah, West Texas, the holes around the hoofs intact. Like, you should be improvising a bunch of garbage expertise about, well, now there's no blood here, but often the blood pools, and, so it suggests these were mutilated elsewhere, so maybe mutilated in a craft and then left behind. That's different from what we saw in Nevada. And act like you've been here before. Act like you've seen this all before. But they keep thinking, well, no, it's more dramatic if we've never seen anything like this. Like, that's fine. Then make the lore that you're just cow movers and this is all new to you. That's also cool. You can do that. But you can't have it both ways. You can't be shocked by every little thing you see. Like, have you never seen a footprint before? What did they look like?
They have a number that they put on the screen that there have been over 10,000 cattle mutilations over the last 300 years. When you're so frustrated by this that, like, hey, you've never seen anything like this before. There's a fucking graphic on the screen that says it's happened 10,000 times. It's hard to understand, like, what we're supposed to believe, what the fiction is that we're a part of.
Yeah, because if you've never seen it before, get in your car and drive around. I guarantee you the other ranchers around there have got a story in real life. They've got a story where they found a mutilated cow that was mutilated in a way that they thought was weird. It's extremely common.
I do think, to defy all the laws of physics and all limitations of time and space to get here and covertly remove circles of cows thousands of times, it's probably as close to impossible as anything, but sure, aliens. Why not?
Now, why would the aliens be doing this? To what end? Because they've not been, like, dissected. They've not had,
That's a sex thing.
They've just been carved up. So, yeah, you would have to suggest that the aliens themselves are either pranksters and or perverts.
Yeah, star perverts. So Jeff tallies up everything that's happening. He's like, okay, guys, we got mutilations. We got the sounds that you guys heard. And on top of that, I want to get back in that barn. So he forgot the turkey tracks. He's like forgot 1/3 of their evidence, and also forgot that they've had 3 good shots at that barn and they just keep leaving because it's spooky. But anyway, it's nightfall. I guess the final night investigation for this episode. And I can't remember the hunks. It was Aura and the rookie and
Stallion and Rod.
Bulge, Stallion, and Rod. The horses are too scared, which again, suspiciously looks a lot like an expert horseman telling a horse to spin. They're like, it all smells like death. And they find a deer corpse. Like, they got a real gnarly deer corpse covered in bugs and just dumped it there.
Yeah, but they don't improvise any alien stuff around the deer corpse. No, it's just like they use a lot of language like it's like, oh, it's spooky out here. It smells like death. And it's like, no, it smells like a dead deer.
It's probably the dead deer.
Yeah, you're on a ranch. There's dead stuff. Like that's just a thing that happens. It's been being eaten by maggots. That's what happens. But they have to do that thing where they react the way like I would react if I found a dead deer in my bathroom. That's not the same as how like your parents would have reacted if they found a dead deer out on their land somewhere. It's just like, we got to get it off the land for the, for the buzzards come and eat it. Like it's just a nuisance. It's just a thing that's unremarkable, but they have to play it up like, oh, you smell that? It's like, yeah, it's rotten. It's just dead. It's been out here for several days. It smells exactly how you would expect it to smell. You guys are cowboys. Remember, you are playing cowboys in this show.
Ora is going through the wheat with the other fellas, and he gives another really bad pre-written line where he says, you know how in movies, the black person is always the first one to die? That's not going to happen tonight. And people are like, what the fuck kind of punchline is that? And I feel like this would have been the perfect reveal that he was the deer mutilator, and then he kills the other cowboys. But no, it's just an insane joke, and they have to like kind of drag the punchline out of him. Like, what does that mean? Is because I'm like a few feet in front of you, maybe? And he's like, yeah, I guess. It feels like a Scrubs bit where it's like someone gave a white guy license to do racial jokes, and he's like, oh, I'm fucking taking that license.
Because keep in mind, much like Mountain Monsters, they've not established that anybody is in any danger here.
Right.
That's not part of the story that Steve gave them. They've had cows go missing. That's not the same thing as saying, hey, my granddad, he had a son go missing out here. Could have said anything. It's all fake. Could have said anything. I know people listen. There's like a drinking game every time I complain about this, I'm sure. But they're out there going through that wheat and complaining like, I can't see any. They're doing the Mountain Monsters thing. I can't see anything in this wheat. It's too tall, and it's anything could be out here. You'll keep them guns ready. It's like you're gonna shoot to what? To shoot the alien? What are you? You've not established what. You've had all these vague things. You've had like Jeff saying, the vibe out here is just rancid. I don't like this. There's a dark energy, but you've not had somebody get hurt yet. Now, I know that's coming, spoiler alert, but they've not properly set that up again. And it's fascinating that carried over to this show.
Back at the barn, Parker and the survivalist are just kind of enjoying the beauty of the barn. There's a moment where they're just like, God, this is such a great barn, Jeff. They're all just kind of paralyzed, staring at this, just shining flashlights at it, just working up the nerve to go back inside this empty barn. They never do. They cut back to the field where the other hunks hear a pig noise. Like they hear a noise, but it is pig sound effect number 4 from the Halloween record. And they're like, what the fuck was that? It sounds like a pig.
To be clear, if there's a wild boar out there, that's a problem. Yeah. That's legitimately, that's an issue. That thing will hurt you. But they don't say that. It's like, what was that? And I almost think that the sound effects guy kind of like played a prank on him instead of in where they're supposed to program in some sort of, in the notes, it was supposed to be like, well, give us some sort of a weird ET, like an ET type sound. And he just dubbed in an oinking pig. It's like make him look like a bunch of idiots.
So they call for backup. They're like, we're not alone out here. And then Jeff's like, well, I mean, like, what do you need? He's like, well, you got to hurry up, over. So they send Caveman Hunk out on the 4-wheeler, and he just tears off towards them. They have this plan to flush the monster out, and while they're forming this scheme, the rookie is just like pulled into the wheat by unseen claws, and that's it. That's the cliffhanger.
Yeah, end of the episode. And this is where, if this was the first time you were watching it, you would suddenly realize, wait a second, is this part 1 of a 2-parter, or
right?
Are they going to spend the whole season trying to solve the mystery of this guy's haunted barn and this crater? Like, is the reason why they took 4 shots at going into that barn and were too scared for the entire episode because they're only going to do like one barn set piece later in the season? So they had to keep just not going in the barn.
Yeah.
But they needed something. So they had over and over kept repeating this beat of going to the barn, but then not going into the barn because it's too scary. And they did it during the day, came back at night, came back the next day, and then came back at night. They took 4 shots at it, alternating between day and night. And every time it's like, nah, it's too scary during the day too. Better come back tonight and try again. I know it's even scarier at night. We'll try tomorrow. I would love it if the rest of the season, it's just them alternating between trying it with and without daylight.
They could do some therapy sessions where they're talking to the therapist, like, I can't get in that barn. And they're like, what do you think the barn represents to you? And that's what they have to overcome to get in that barn. There was a supercut, obviously, at the end of this to show coming up this season on UFO Cowboys. And they show this rookie doing like 50 different things. So I don't think he's actually killed by the wheat monster. So it's kind of a spoiler. You mentioned the helicopter. In the supercut, the helicopter comes down and they're like, you come on down here, I'll fuck you up. So I guess the helicopter was like a rival, like UFO hunting team. It seems like just from that bit, I think is what that was.
It is something to that effect. You're also going to see I think you're going to see the horse fall over on one of the guys where they get the horse getting shot stunt. You see the ambulances and the EMTs, the actors loading somebody into it. You see like Jeff getting put into, I don't know, taken into custody by some, men in black types or something. You see a lot of glimpses, but none of that's what we want to talk about. None of that matters. In the middle of all that, you see them wrestling a nude man. Now, when in the episode where they had to wrestle a nude huckleberry, which for those of you that for some reason this is your first episode of Mountain Monsters you've listened to, of Big Feets you've listened to, what a mistake this was. This is not the normal format. This is not even the normal show. But okay, so there was an episode that we just very recently did where Huckleberry was mind possessed by a mind controlling Bigfoot called the Cherokee Devil. And it immediately made him take all of his clothes off and start fighting and or dancing with a totem pole. Yeah. Well, we're going to say that. And then to get him out of it, they had to like rush him, and he fought them, and they had to wrestle this totally nude man into a pond, and the cold water woke him up, and then he was fine again. So
yeah,
I seen this, allowed the show to keep playing because we did just want to discuss the first episode. It is in episode 4 near the end when one of the hunks, I had to look it up. It is Josh, the survivalist, who gets mind controlled by the alien, I guess, and he disappears just like Huckleberry. They go looking for him, and just like Huckleberry, they find him fully nude, out of his mind, and they all have to fight him. And the entire team has to tackle this nude man until he snaps out of it. Now, when this happened in the show in Mountain Monsters, we, as always, speculated the team came up with this. Like they put their heads together. We always treat Mountain Monsters like they are improvising these story beats on the fly, on the day. Well, none of those guys were here for this. And the same thing happened. So one of two options. I want you to tell me your opinion. One, was it Colt Straub, producer, the only thing these two shows have in common, who came up with that plot point both times and said, this is too good, we've got to repeat it? Or did the boys come up with it, and then when he came to do UFO Cowboys, he said to them, I've got an idea. I saw the guys do something in one of my other shows. What we're going to need, Josh, you're going to need to get fully nude, and the rest of the hunks are going to do a nude wrestle fight with you because you're being mind controlled by an alien. Then the alien made you get nude for some reason.
I've been tricked that way a lot, to be honest. I have found myself in a lot of nude wrestling matches where it's like, wait a second, this wasn't about a gentleman's combat contest. I do think that Josh, he's clearly very buff, and I think he might have been finding an excuse to get naked. It felt like Colt Straub. It was just kind of set up the same way. The wrestling match itself felt very improvisational. Like they went way too hard, way too fast, in that it felt like a lot of high school wrestlers like saying, oh, I know what'll look cool, and then just really going for it rather than like trained stunt people trying to make it look cool. Like there's a slam into the ground where I'm like, oh, that dude hit a rock, he's fucking hurt.
Yeah, and these guys are stunt performers. These guys are all pros. They do like the guy that does the horse stunt. They don't swap him out for somebody else. The horse lands on his leg. Like it's that kind of, you pull the horse over and you make it fall down.
Sure.
It's dangerous for the horse. It's not done on pads. It's done on bare ground. But these guys they're rodeo types. They do horse stunts on movie sets. They've been, I think almost all of them been extras in Hollywood productions of some kind or other. So but this is my issue. It is one thing to see this happen with the elderly and overweight Huckleberry, this nude mountain man, and being roughly tackled by these other elderly men who are grossly out of shape and very much. To see a strapping hunk of a muscular hunk being wrestled to the ground nudely by these other muscular cowboy hunks with their beards and their goatees and their luxurious long hair and their cowboy hats, the vibe could not be any different. And to me, it sums up everything that is wrong and bad about this attempt at recreating the magic of mountain monsters, which, looking at IMDb, looking at everything, is Colt Straub's only big hit. Like, none of these other shows have gotten 9 seasons. None of these other shows have they didn't spawn all of these other. It was Mountain Monsters that spawned all of these other side projects.
Yesified Mountain Monsters is what this is in a lot of ways. Do you know that Tickled documentary? Do you know what I'm talking about with that Tickled documentary?
Not only that, I was on that guy's podcast, not the pervert, the journalist David Ferrier who made that. I was on his show like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. Because that's the vibe I get, is that this could have been a leering pervert's trick to get nude heterosexual men to wrestle in front of him.
To be clear, all of this plays like a Mountain Monsters porn parody.
Yeah.
Including the acting feels like this stilted version, because we've not really brought up, you mentioned it very briefly, how bad the acting is.
Yeah.
Because in Mountain Monsters, there's not that many instances where they've been given, the rare times when they've been given like a scripted sequence to act out, you can see how stilted it is and how unnatural it is. Sure. But most of the time, they're allowed to just talk and just say
they're
whatever.
Playing elevated versions of themselves. Advancing very generic ideas of plot in an improvisational way that, like, it's hard to step on anything anyone does. And we've seen Mountain Monsters and themselves into a Cherokee child bride ghost. Like, there's no... That's not a writer's room idea. That's a fucking madman's spur of the moment idea.
And that's what's great about it, of course. Here, this more polished version, these guys are stunt performers, not actors. And you can tell. Right. But so much of this is carefully scripted out. And it's very rough, because everything from the banter to... Because I don't know that these guys know each other. I think the Mountain Monsters crew, for the most part, they did know each other. Their neighbors, their coworkers, whatever. And they got together and did this thing. These guys, it looks like they read for these parts, or they were cast but based on wanting different types of hunk. And it's when they do lines and when they do, like, I take that back. Jeff isn't bad, but as I mentioned earlier, Jeff has a YouTube channel where he does like this stuff, like tells wild, like old rancher stories. Like that was his thing. So he's got some experience kind of doing this stuff to camera. And his sin is that he's way over the top with, like, everything is played to 10. And it's like, oh, I don't know. I think we're about to step into the gates of hell, boys. But the rest of the guys, it's like, what is that sound over there? I ain't never heard nothing like that. And it's just...
you sure are throwing me into the fire on my first rodeo.
It plays like these are hunks first. They were cast because they're hunks, and they don't have any of... I don't know. I found the whole thing depressing and sad. I don't know. You should check it out. I guess there's a nude fight in episode 4. We know that's out there.
That's pretty good.
There may be other good moments. From what I've seen when I let the show play to get to the nude fight, it looked like a lot of stretch, stretched, repeating the same beats. I think it was in episode 5. They go back to that crater to get more soil samples.
Oh my God.
And it's like, and just hitting these same beats over and over and over again for a show that is called UFO Cowboys. It sounds like the camp factor should be turned up to 12, but it's really not. Like, I know they don't have a ton to work with, but it's either go full stupid with it. Well, no, there's no other option. That was the only thing you could do. And it's weird. It's like weirdly restrained, or there's the same kind of lack of imagination where the true magic of Mountain Monsters was where they always just accidentally improvised something like, well, this creature, I saw it kill a buck in one move it jumped off that ridge and it killed the buck and it did a flying elbow drop. It had to have been 400 or 500 miles an hour. It's like, yes, that's right. You started talking. You had no idea what was going to come out of your mouth and you just kept it all. That's right, buddy.
Yeah, the Mountain Monsters creatures will like warp in and out of dimensions sometimes. One of them was just the alien from Aliens. And these guys are just like, all they have to work with are cow mutilations, crop circles, flying saucers, and then they just recycle those. And even in the first episode, the first 20-minute episode we watched, I'm like, they are just keep circling back to this fucking cattle mutilation. Like, aliens have to do other things, right? Like, they could do whatever you want. They come from the stars with impossible technology.
Well, part of the problem is that they discover that footprint, but it's not the kind of production where you're going to see that creature. They don't have that creature. That's not gonna happen. It will always be something invisible. So that's why you've got a guy getting possessed by the alien, because that's something you can actually show on screen. Yes. Now, why did he have to be nude? That's unknowable, but I don't know. We had, in terms of once we run out of Mountain Monsters, could we like do these other shows and these other spinoffs? This show didn't give me a lot of hope for that. I would not look forward to trying to do this show episode by episode, because if you sit down and list what actually occurred in this episode, they found a footprint and a guy got sucked into the wheat. Other than that, it was a lot of, we thought we heard a sound. We got a weird feeling. We kept trying to go into the barn over and over again. We found that crater. Mm-hmm. And that's it for a 20. How long are these without ads? 25 minutes.
Going into it, if you take out going into and out of the barn, that's 80% of the things that happened. That's just what they kept doing over and over. Yeah, it's a terrible show. We could do it. I think it's terrible enough to make fun of, but like, I don't think we'd be as happy as when we talk about Mountain Monsters.
Well, for example, at the end of an episode of Big Feets, here's where we would wrap up with our quote of the episode. I could not come up with a quote of the episode.
Didn't even bother. I just was sure we weren't going to do that.
The only thing that I would have to maybe could go with, the guy when he pulls out the Geiger counter, the whichever hunk that was, says, Geiger, Gaga, what?
If I had to pick, I guess I'd say Jeff's limp little almost when they're like, oh, you've seen something like this before, Jeff? And his like long pause and then almost. That cracked me up. But it's a performance piece. It's
like that's the moment when he also realized they did not have enough to work with.